This is Maghull Radio.
Right, now we're going to introduce Graham reading his own work. But before we do that, I'll read the blurb, as it's called, from the back of his first book, Finding Amelia. Following the horrific death of his wife and child, Robert Adams struggles to rebuild a life with his 17-year-old daughter, Jenny. Their relationship is tested further when she expresses a desire to contact her mother through a spiritualist, and he watches helplessly as they slowly drift apart. But everything changes when Jenny begins to dream, dreams which take her into another world, a world inhabited by a young girl imprisoned in a dark attic. A girl Jenny believes is an ancestor whose spirit is reaching out across the generations. But who is she? What does she want? As Jenny's behaviour becomes increasingly dangerous and unpredictable, Robert finds himself confiding in Sebastian Tint, an old professor who claims to possess a sixth sense. Together they employ retired genealogist Jack Staple to trace the family tree, but it is a journey that takes Robert down a road of discovery that threatens to tear their world apart. And it's over to you, Graham.
Thank you. The sun was shining, and I thought about taking a camera and stopping off at the old church on the way to the grave. I might have got lucky and snapped the sun as it dipped behind the steeple, catching that elusive picture that would find its way onto the cover of a glossy monthly. My relationship with photography had always been uneasy. The resulting images always appeared lifeless and uninspired, and even the idea of changing my old camera for an all-singing, all-dancing contraption failed to inspire me to get back behind the lens, and I found myself driving past the church without so much as a sideways glance. I reached the gates of the cemetery just as the sun sank behind the trees, casting long dark shadows across the graves. I stopped the car near the entrance and pulled on my jacket. Sometimes when the mood took me, I found myself reading the epitaphs on the headstones. Each time I'd take a different route, stopping at any grave that caught my eye. There was a history engraved in every stone, lying between the lines. What, for instance, did Constance Penworth die from? Aged 32 and loved only, it seemed, by her husband. No other name appeared on the old white stone. No children, no brothers, no sisters. Maybe their love had begun as an illicit affair, an affair that had left them ostracised and destined to live the rest of their lives alone. I wondered if Constance was watching me as I stopped at her grave. Did the spirits of the dead gather there, hovering in the ether above their bones? Was Elizabeth waiting for me, holding Hannah close to her side? "Here's Daddy, my darling, he's come to see us." Jenny would talk to her mother every time we visited the grave. She would chatter freely, almost as if they were standing face to face. I longed for her faith, the unshakable belief in the afterlife that would allow me to converse with my wife and child, free from the restraints of my own scepticism. I hadn't bought any flowers. The visit had not been planned. "I just thought I'd drop by, darling," I muttered uneasily, casting my eyes across the inscription bearing my name. Beloved wife of Robert. There was a space underneath, a space that would be inscribed with the date of my own demise. I shuddered, the recurring fear of being buried alive passing through me like a cold wind. I stood over the grave for several minutes, alone in a landscape littered with bones, wood, stone and earth. Yet I felt at peace there, a member of an exclusive club which allowed me to walk freely amongst the dead with impunity. I would nod and smile in the direction of others who attended, with an understanding hanging between us. They were my brothers and sisters in grief, in loneliness, in longing. We needed no words, no explanations, and no apologies. When I arrived home, Jenny was in her room. Not that it would seem unusual to find a teenager sitting on a bed and watching TV, but my daughter was not a bedroom girl, preferring to sit at the kitchen table, surfing the net and chatting to friends on social media. I left her. Maybe she needed some space. But over the following days I found her spending more and more time alone, venturing down only to make herself a coffee before disappearing again. She was pale, and had that look of a rabbit caught in the headlights of a car. I felt the storm clouds gathering, I swear. Was it a premonition, or was it an inert sense that since the deaths of Elizabeth and Hannah, everything in my life was destined to go wrong? On the night it all began, Jenny, as far as I can recall, had eaten nothing but a piece of fruit and a diet drink. I started to wonder if Josie's suspicions had been well founded. Maybe she might have taken to one of those starvation diets and was staying out of my way. Maybe she needed something she could control, the image that stared back at her from the bedroom mirror. I had a glass of whiskey, my thoughts lost on the TV screen, as I wondered if my decision to leave my job at the local investment company had been a wise one. Elizabeth's life insurance had paid out handsomely, and I'd cashed in my shares, leaving me with enough money to live on, providing I didn't live like a lottery winner. But I decided I needed something to fill my days, to occupy my mind. Maybe I could give Martin a ring in the morning and see if there were any vacancies. By the time I'd emptied my glass, the day had been planned. I took a few gulps of cold water and turned off the lights. I didn't bother to undress, but collapsed onto the bed, falling into a hazy sleep as soon as my head touched the pillow. At 2 in the morning, I was wakened by a scream. I ran to Jenny's room to find her sitting on bed, shaking violently. She was staring in my direction, but I knew she wasn't focusing. Her eyes were filled with what I can only describe as a pure, unadulterated terror. "Jenny," I cried, fearing to approach. "What the hell?" My voice seemed to cut through the semi-consciousness. She blinked, fell back onto her pillow and sighed deeply. "A dream," she gasped. "Just a dream." Her eyes closed. "I'm okay. Go back to bed." The following morning I attempted to elicit some kind of explanation from my daughter, treading like a barefooted man through broken glass. But Jenny would offer me nothing, claiming that she couldn't remember. I didn't believe her. I could still see the fear in my daughter's eyes.
Ooh, that is very intriguing. What an intriguing story that is.
Yeah.
And I know I've read your whole book almost twice. I've not quite got to the end of it the second time yet, but I will do. And I'll be passing it on to you, Pippa. Pippa's read the second one.
I've only read the second one, and the atmosphere it's there. It's
gripping,
dark,
isn't it? Yeah. Do you actually, have you ever experienced the supernatural? What made you write it?
To be honest, it's I'm very, very sceptical, and people might be surprised to realise I'm quite sceptical. I do believe in an afterlife, definitely.
Yeah.
I do believe in spirits, but I think a lot of things that people experience can be put down to some logical explanation. So. But I have had, there has been experiences, nothing too dramatic, but I think one time a waft of wind went past me just after my sister-in-law died, and I could smell the perfume, and I didn't even know what perfume she wore.
Yeah.
And I ran upstairs to my wife's bedroom and I said, "What perfume did Alice wear?" And she said, "It's on there," and I smelled it, and it was exactly the same perfume. So that was only something mild, but it was the draft you get as if someone's closed a door, and you feel that draft going past your face. So there's been things like that. I mean, I'm sure there's thousands of people who've had similar experiences.
Yeah, well, I have myself. You know, I know quite a few people who have. It's usually in that period shortly after somebody dies. You know, you see. I don't know whether. Some people will probably say, "Oh, you're just imagining it because you miss them," but no, I think there's more to it than that.
Yeah. I think as well, it was I think it's a good subject to write about because it, rather like sci-fi, it gives you that sort of scope to write and to write something interesting. I couldn't write a detective novel to save my life because I haven't got that mindset that would enable me to do that. I mean, I'm in awe of people that write detective stories and have all these twists and turns. I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
But
no, you do very well in this. Jenny comes across to me as very sensible.
Yes, she is.
And I've only read the second one, and I didn't didn't twig that it was a supernatural, because I felt as if there was evil. But the evil in the book, you always seem to.
This is the second one, A Rising Evil.
Yes, or any evil there was, you sort of not justified it, but there was a backstory to the person, which I thought was I like that. You know, so it was, you know. Is that something to do with your opinion of evil? Because the people that perpetrated the evil, they'd had terrible lives.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
in the second book, there's Reese, and he's had a terrible time, and there's no justification for what he did.
No.
But you think, well, yes, you know, I get that. And you do talk about personality disorders. Is that sort of, have you got an interest in something like that?
Yes, mental health, personality disorders and things. I have a niece with Asperger's, and
Right.
I'm in touch with a young autistic man in his early 20s, because I'm writing about an autistic boy in the first standalone book.
Right.
Yeah.
Once the trilogy is finished, I'll be starting on this book, and it's called Julius.
Right.
And he has extrasensory perception, which is the paranormal angle of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to write about an autistic boy unless I could talk to
Yeah.
someone who could say, and he's reading the chapters as I go along
Yes.
and verifying it. But I do like to write about, I think it's interesting, it's fascinating.
Yeah. So this is the genre you like. You like the sort of
I like
the
that
supernatural.
going into the you know, I like to write about personalities. A lot of my I like to feel my novels go into the actual personalities rather than just the plot.
Yeah, I like the way you've woven the characters together.
Yes,
Because and I don't want to give any of the plot away for future readers, but everybody seems to be interlinked somewhere
Yes.
along the line, you know, and I like that, whether they're from the present or from the past. I think that's a really clever thing to be able to do.
I like the smells. Because I could
Oh yeah,
when-
you said about Jenny's sense.
Jenny,
Yeah.
when she's having this dream and she's smelling, and I think the smell is it transports you. It's a memory, isn't
Yes,
it? And
yeah.
and you just get that smell, and you can remember something, can't you?
Well,
Yes.
that,
From when you were
as
a
you
child.
said before, you know, you smell your sister-in-law's perfume.
Yes.
That's a kind of an extrasensory perception,
Yes,
isn't it, in
yes.
itself?
I mean, it's something that there's people will try to explain it, but I don't think anyone really knows.
No.
And I think the fact that we don't understand it makes it more and more fascinating.
More intriguing, isn't it?
No one can come along and give you a rational explanation to something that's totally irrational.
No, exactly.
When you started writing this, did you conceive the whole trilogy beforehand?
No,
or did
no.
you just think of the first story and then the others came along afterwards?
Do you know something? I'd always wanted to write contemporary fiction.
And when did you start writing, Graham?
Well, I started wanting to write, I think it was far back as about 1996 or something like that, when I started going on holiday and I'd take books with me. And I thought, I'd love to do this.
Have you got this urge to write? You've got to write.
I wanted to write, but I would have scenarios and scenes in my mind without being able to put them into a story. I would never be able to pad them out into a story. So consequently, this went on for a few years before, and really Amelia, the story of Amelia was born just out of going round a stately home where there was this model of a girl sitting in front of a window, and it wasn't an eerie scene, but it was very atmospheric, and that's all that it started with. And it was a couple of weeks or months before I started to write the story, and I didn't have any idea where it was going. Someone said to me, oh, I was on chapter 14 and I had no idea what was going to happen next. And I just said, well, when I was writing chapter 14, I had no idea what was going to happen next.
I've heard that before, and that fascinates me, that people, the characters sort of take over.
The characters do take over,
and they
yes.
start doing
Yeah.
things. Well, why did you do that? That is amazing.
To be honest, in answer to your original question, when I'd finished finding Amelia and had got a publisher, the reason I started making it into a trilogy was that I didn't want to let go of the characters.
Right.
It wasn't that I had a story.
They become your friends.
I just wanted to stick with them and to see where it went. And when I started writing,
you don't have to get rid of Amelia,
No.
do you?
But when I started writing that, I didn't really have an idea where it went. I just get taken along by the story,
Yes.
and then it unfolds as I'm going along.
Yes.
One thing I liked is there's a huge presence of evil going on here, and we know it. I can't know. I was just going to say something that would give the plot.
Don't be doing any plot spoilers.
No, we're not doing any spoilers tonight. What I liked is that there's the presence of evil, but there's also the presence of Robert's dad, and his faith has carried through to Robert.
Yes. Yeah.
And it takes him. It raises him up, doesn't it?
Yes.
It carries him through the terrible times.
Is that in the first book?
Yeah. What would my dad have done?
Yes.
And he actually says sometimes, doesn't he? Help me, Dad.
Yeah. The thing is with Robert, and the thing is I wanted to portray in the book was the fact that when Robert lost his wife and his younger daughter, he tried to become a mother and a father to Jenny, and he couldn't do it.
Nobody.
You can't be both parents. No. You might try. He couldn't fill out the male role and the female roles. So he kind of lashed out, and instead of trying to be understanding, he just hit out, and he just didn't handle it very well. And of course, as in the blurb you read, he just totally dismissed her want to speak to her mother via medium. Instead of dealing
that's
with
understandable, isn't it? Though?
Of course, yes, but without dealing with sensitivity, he just ostracised her, and of course that caused a lot of problems.
Yeah. I like the way you told the story. Through the characters, but also through letters and diaries and spiritual messages, and through the genealogy as well.
Yes.
It made all these different layers. I just liked that. I thought that was good. Have you ever done your own family tree?
No, you've no idea how confused I got doing that family tree for that book. I had the dates completely wrong. I had people with babies having babies.
Do you do like a story? Do you have it on a storyboard?
I had to chart it out like you do a family tree, and I had to keep referring to it because
I can imagine.
I'm hopeless remembering. I will sometimes totally forget something I've written in the previous chapter.
Yes, right. Well, I can understand that.
It's. Which is not good for an author, really, because you have to keep going back.
You deal with a lot of issues, don't you? Because Kayla, in the second book, I don't know whether she's got a lot of issues.
Yes.
And is that something that you feel that you want to address and bring out?
Yes. Yeah.
Because I keep going back to this thing about evil, because I don't. Yes, it is evil, but I feel that you're sort of. I don't know whether you think it's really evil.
It's difficult. I always find it's a very emotive subject, the whole subject of evil, because you will find the people who have a terrible upbringing, they'll say this, it's because of this, and yet people who have the same upbringing turn out completely different.
React differently.
Like an abused child will because they've had such a bad time with abuse, they will never abuse anyone, and others will abuse because they've been abused. So it's something within us.
It's something in your soul,
it's something
isn't it?
that I really can't answer whether pure evil does exist
But in the second book, I think there's somebody in. I won't say who the character is, but I think he sort of I think he's seeking forgiveness, isn't he?
Yes. Yeah.
Which I'm a bit of a Pollyanna, and I like there to be happy endings. and I'm reading the second one. I'm thinking, it all looks fine, but I'm thinking, I don't know what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
So you've actually finished the third part of the trilogy.
I've actually finished it.
And is that being published as well?
It's with the editor now. I'm hoping it's going to be published. It's going to be launched in round about July.
Right, and that one's called Mosswood.
That's called Mosswood. The actual trilogy is called Beyond the Dark Waters.
Beyond the Dark Waters.
Because the covers are really good. What's that one? It's dark, and on Finding Amelia there's is that anybody particular on the front?
That's my niece.
That's your niece.
Yeah, who was the perfect Amelia, because when I was writing it.
So Amelia's on the front.
Yeah, I only realised that she was actually I was actually describing her without realising it.
Yes.
And so we just put a wig on her.
Yes. So, have you any other works in the pipeline?
Yes, actually my grandson Sonny, he's into all the parallel universe and portals and things to other worlds, and he's got a terrific imagination. And I said to him one time, I'll have to write a book, a children's book. So I just decided to start it, and just as a fun thing, really. Yeah. But it's called Peter Patterson and the Prophet's Pen, which sounds very Harry Potterish, but it's basically about a parallel universe and a little boy who kind of wanders into it. Yeah. And so I'm reading it to my grandson as I go along. And if he starts to fall asleep, I know I've got it wrong, because he likes it so far. So I'm really well into it. But there's Julius, about the autistic boy, but then there's another one. Which I'm kind of juggling, which is basically about, and it's written in the first person, which is something I like to do, about a young man relating over his life. He becomes obsessed with his sister gets like a Cindy doll. It's not a Cindy doll, it's bigger than a Cindy doll, a little bit bigger, but it's absolutely perfectly made, and it's a one-off made by this company. And he becomes obsessed with it to the point, the detail's fantastic, and he thinks she's beautiful, but he can't form relationships throughout his life. Because of this obsession.
So that's the next one.
So that's quite eerie as well. What happens? The doll doesn't come to life or anything like that. That's a bit old hat now. But
can you tell us, Graham, how if anyone's listening, they want to buy your book, how do they go about it? Where can they buy it?
You can go onto my. You can go to Beaten Track Publications.
And they're based in Burscough, aren't they?
They're based in Burscough, and they have some excellent writers. I've got to mention Debbie Maghull, because she was the one who believed in my book. I didn't want to self-publish, but I didn't want to. I realised that there were lots of the major publishers were getting 4,000 manuscripts a week and publishing only 2.
That must be just...
It was heartbreaking. It was soul destroying. Because basically they're going...
4,000 they get a year?
I was at 4,000 manuscripts a week. The agents were choosing 2 writers a year.
So somehow you've got to hope that somebody reads yours. They're not going to read them all, are they?
They don't read anything if it's not about the genre they're dealing with or what's trending at the moment.
So did you send it to a publisher that dealt with your genre?
No, I just heard about this small independent publisher in Burscough.
Oh, so you didn't send it to others?
No, I just sent it to them. I'd already sent it. I'd written a novel about 10 years ago, which wasn't a very good novel, I must admit. And I sent it off to them, and the agent wrote back with this information. Sorry, it's not what we're looking for at the moment. And do you realise that we have 4,000 manuscripts a week? It was like telling me, don't bother.
Well, excuse me. J.K. Rowling.
She had about 37.
Exactly. What do you like to read?
I like my favourite authors are actually Stephen King, Linwood Barclay. Linwood Barclay is a great with the plot twists. Nicholas Evans, who wrote The Horse Whisperer.
Right.
But to be honest, while I'm in the middle of writing, I try not to read, because I get influenced by... If I read 3 books while I was writing a novel, you'd find 3 different styles in my book.
Incredibly different.
Because I soak the styles in, and I get too influenced by them.
I'm so impressed.
So where can they buy it? Is it by going on to Beaten Track Publishing?
You can go on to Beaten Track Publications, which if you just type that name in,
Beaten Track Publications.
And there's great authors, and there's Amazon, Smashwords. There's anything online, you'll be able to get it. Amazon will do it. If you put Finding Amelia, Graham West on, you'll come straight to it. You won't have to scroll down at all.
Okay. Oh, well, that's good.
Any plans to do an audiobook? Because that's all the range
well,
now.
I'm looking at that now. Yes, but also I play guitar, background music guitar at the Bull and Dog in Burscough every Sunday afternoon.
That's a quick plug.
Sorry about that.
And have you got the books beside?
And I've got books there as well, so that you can. I'll sign them while I'm there. Just come. You don't have to wait till I finish playing. Just come up and say hello, and I'll
come
sign
up in
them.
a ghoulie outfit.
Well, we might just do that. Anyway, it's been your reading was really good. I know you weren't looking that forward to to reading yourself.
No,
but,
I don't like the sound of my own voice.
It was very good.
But it was good.
Yeah.
It was really good. And it's been lovely talking to you. And I hope
Thank
that when you get your last book in the trilogy published, when it comes out, maybe you can at least tell us that it's coming out, or maybe you can come back in and then let us know how you're getting on with your other books.
Will do. Can I just mention something? Another place where you can get the book, and that's
yes, go on.
Right Blend in South Road, Waterloo. Is
that WRITE?
Yes.
Blend?
Right Blend, is that what sort of shop's that?
It's a bookshop and coffee shop.
Is it?
And so you can wander around.
Crosby Coffee.
You can
South Road.
Yes, you can get coffee upstairs.
My son lives in Crosby.
Bob Stone runs it.
Sorry, right Blend. What was it?
Right Blend. It's just called Right
Just
Blend.
Right Blend.
It's in South Road, Waterloo. Go around and browse. They have all the main titles, but they also support independent publishers.
Oh, yeah. That's fantastic.
So, and you could spend the day there just wandering around, have a cup of coffee, have something
Right
to
Blend,
read.
South Road, lovely coffee, Crosby Coffee.
It is, yes.
Well, that's fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me on.
Yes,
it's
you're very welcome. It's been a pleasure to have you come in here. Don't go away. Just listen to the rest of the show.
I will do. Yes.
So it's time for our next song then.
This is Maghull Radio.